This is Work and Learn Abroad.
Welcome to a new episode of Work and Learn Abroad. Today we have George, that is a professional that has been working abroad for more than 10 years. He's from Romania, he's a software developer, and he's going to talk about his experience abroad, tips about getting a job, how to cope with a new culture in a new country, and provide some tips. So welcome, George. How are you doing?
Hi, hello everybody. I'm fine.
So maybe if you guys start to talk about a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So as you said, my name is George. I'm coming from Romania. I'm now living, as you are, in Ireland. So I'm here for more than 10 years. So I landed in Ireland in 2008, I think, just in the middle of
The crisis.
economical crash, right?
Yeah.
Which I didn't know it will happen. And as you might know, Ireland was, after United States, the most affected country by this. But luckily in our sector, it didn't really feel like it's a problem. So I came in 2008, and
It's been here.
I've been here since then. I came initially just with an idea to see how it is, what it is all about.
Okay.
Didn't know too much about the country. So I said, I might stay 1 year, and if nothing gets good out of this, I'll go back home. But here I am 10 years later.
Why Ireland? And when this idea about going abroad started in your mind to be happening?
I don't know. It was never something calculated. It happened. I mean, I worked in United States for a while. It looks like without actually wanting to do it, it just happened. It's our industry usually, right? That people travel, go around. So I worked in Romania after finishing university for a while. Then with some colleagues from university, we went and we worked a while in the United States. Then I came back. United States, for me wasn't. We didn't match
Okay.
very well, right? Then I came back to Romania, work over there, and somehow an opportunity arises lately, without looking too much into it. I came here. In fact, I didn't came here. So if it's a story time, I can tell the story. So there was. I got a chance to interview for one of these big companies, and that was in France, in Paris. So I interviewed over there.
In French or
No.
in English?
I mean, if I would have talked in French, they wouldn't have accepted me. I know 5 words.
Okay.
No, in English. So it's a corporation, like all over the world. I passed the interview, but some weird thing happened there. At least that's what they told me. They messed it up, and they didn't actually call me there to come to start working.
Okay.
And then just kind of to say sorry, they came and then they asked me to come back to another interview, but it was a different country this time, so it was Ireland. So they asked me to come here, talk a little bit with them, and so I got to Ireland. So it wasn't actually, I didn't target any country. It was more like the company. It's one of these big companies that everybody wants to work for, at least back then. So it happened to be Ireland.
When you were at the university, did you already were able to speak English? How this language skills started to develop?
I was speaking English, but not very well. Not that now I'm speaking English well, but at least in Romania and in a lot of Eastern European countries, just because at least back then there wasn't enough documentation in our field, enough books in our language, and of course TV and things like that was every American English, kind of forced us to learn the language, at least the basics. And once you get into the industry, slowly you are forced to learn it better and better just because you are exposed it all the time with either tools in English, documentation, people from abroad, and the common language is English. So it was like a progressive thing, yeah.
You are the first Romanian in the show, so
Okay.
We have talked before that sometimes, at least in Spanish or French, we feel that we need to be perfect in another language when we are trying to learn another language. So there's this barrier when we think, oh, I need to be perfect in English to actually be speaking English and learn and working on English. And then when you start to going and working with companies and stuff, you find out, well, actually, I don't need to be perfect. What is the case for people who speak Romania's native language?
So in Romania, we can say, a bit of luck. Since you might know, Romania used to be like a communist country until relatively recently. So we are economically like a few steps behind, and because of that, we didn't had the latest technology in like TV industry and so on. And because of all this, I kind of assumed that they chose slowly the easiest way to introduce like movies in the market, and we never had like subtitles. Like, I mean, we always had subtitles, sorry, and we didn't have doubled like in Italy, I see, or in Spain. All the movies in TVs or cinema are doubled, right? So the Arnold Schwarzenegger speaks in Italian or in Spanish.
Okay.
In Romania, you don't have such a thing. You only have subtitles, but you hear English. So I think just because of that, school maybe it's not good enough to teach you a foreign language, but just because of that and because of this huge amount of American culture influence,
It gets easier.
it speaks a little bit of English, maybe not correctly grammatically, but knows a few words. And starting from there, yeah. In my case, I build because of the type of work I'm doing. So.
And what about well, you were saying that you worked in the U.S. Then you came for an interview in France, and then it happens Ireland. So, what is it to be working in an American environment and or in the U.S.? I'm not sure if there is the American environment from the company, or is the country itself that it didn't match to your taste, and then Ireland or France were more, so that people can kind of think, okay, maybe the U.S. is not for me because these same reasons. Or
yeah. The question is it's actually very good. I think my main problem with the United States was distance, right? So from somebody from South America, Central America, much easier to target United States. It's closer to home. You can go home. You cannot really take all your family with you, or maybe you can. So for me, I think that was the main reason. It's just half of planet away, and going all by myself. I mean, no family. Everything was left home, and some different things that happened over there, like the company I was working for. It was a small startup. Like majority of the startups, they die. I wasn't feeling like I want to stay there, so I didn't look for another job. Everybody else, so I went with two other colleagues. They stayed there. They could find a job relatively easily. So I decided to come back home after that. But it was mainly that it's far away from home, and comparing with European type of life, there is a big difference, right? So it takes a while maybe to get used to it, and maybe if I would have stayed even longer, I would have got used to it, right? So it's slightly different. So now I'm saying that I prefer the European lifestyle, but if I would stay there for longer, I would say, American lifestyle is better. So I think the proximity, the home to the final destination, it matters. If you want to go home and you travel for 24 hours, pretty problematic.
If I was in Eastern Europe,
Yeah.
and I was looking for a job in another country, what would you recommend to those people about getting a work in IT? That's what we know.
Yeah, but things changed, right? At least since the time I used to work over there. So I find it now much easier than before. Maybe just because the economy kind of is booming, especially in our industry. It's much easier to find a job. It's currently to find a job from Eastern Europe to come here, just to Western Europe, not necessarily to America. So if you want to come to Western Europe, it's easy. Political reasons. First of all, Romania and some other Eastern Europeans are part of European Union, so easy to travel.
Yeah.
If you are coming from Ukraine or Russia or some other, it might be a little bit more difficult, but I don't think it's very difficult. And especially in country like this one, like Ireland, where IT industry is like growing exponentially and continue to grow, and the need of people it's constant. It's much easier to live it. You are going to be sucked into these countries. Usually, even if you don't really want to live, you'll find easily an opportunity. So I don't find it very difficult these days. Just if you want to do it, just to have your ears open for any opportunity, and they will show up pretty easily. Yeah. Especially, I'm talking for Romania, right? I see how easy it is from that country to come here. So the main requirement, in my opinion, is to want to, and of course to know some stuff that is required in the destination country. So in our industry, to have some experience in IT software.
What advice could be given to people who are trying to connect with people over here in an island? Let's say you are in Romania and then you want to come here, check some jobs online, and then send some mails to recruiters. What it could be nice to put in that that initial contact?
So the easiest way. So let's say that you want to come to Ireland, which is the case I know. I think the easiest way, if possible, is to know somebody there, a friend.
Okay.
If you know somebody there, the door is already open, just because you have a little bit of inside information, and that's more than enough to bring you here. If you don't know anybody, as in anything, do a little bit of research. And I think the main target of the research is to identify Irish job sites. If you identify those and you post your CV to some of those jobs, you will be easily contacted. But yeah, well, if you know somebody, or if you manage to get into some community of people that work here, I think it's the easiest way. But again, I'm talking not in general about any industry. I'm talking about software and IT.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know too much about any other. Yeah. I don't know if somebody else that works as a driver, how to get here. Unfortunately.
What about when you're doing interview and then they make you an offer? I'm not, because let's say technical stuff you learn at university, you practice at home, you should be knowing that stuff. You come and that's it. So let's talk about the other bit. Like, okay, you get a job offer. So have you seen some difference between how you get a job in Romania, how you get a job here in Ireland, from a point of view of negotiating compensation or shares or more time off? What could you advise to the people to have the ears open about that?
And I don't, especially now, even back then, 10 years ago, there was not much difference. At least in my case, I used to work in multinational companies in Romania, so the behavior was similar. So there was no big difference in how interviews went. Of course, as for any interview, maybe you need some preparation in advance to focus that direct company, to learn a bit about that company, to do your research and know a little bit more about that. But other than that, whatever you know, in this world, which is pretty global currently, things are not much different. Of course, it depends again where you are coming from.
Yeah.
But Eastern European culture currently, and this industry is not too different from Western European culture. So there is not too much of a difference. It might depend from company to company. So there are things like usually American companies have this kind of shares, right, that they provide, which maybe not all the European companies do. So you might not be familiar with what that means and how important it is or how not important it is. That's where maybe some negotiation can be done, right? So if a company knows that you might not be aware of that, might not actually provide this. But usually working with a multinational, they don't try to trick you.
Okay.
That's I mean, that's my experience, right? Yeah, it's not about tricking. They are looking usually for good people, and they don't discriminate between places of birth. As long as you know how to do your stuff, you will be almost from the beginning an equal of somebody that is already here.
What about life in general? Like, I'm not sure about how the weather is in Romania, or what kind of life you like, nightlife or day life. What could be different? Or what could be expecting the people from Ireland?
Yeah, so if anybody heard about Ireland, at least they heard about one thing. They heard about weather, yeah, which is from some points of view not ideal, because it rains a little bit more than maybe in your home country, more than in Romania, in my case. From this perspective, yeah, some people have troubles, right? Just because you have some expectations, you're raised in a certain way, and now you have to behave in a different way. But other than that, culture in general in Ireland, it's not very different from any Western country in this world, right? So comparing with Romania, when I came here, I remember the first impact was driving on the wrong side of the road, which is now the right side of the road. So when I'm going home, I'm driving on the wrong side. So that was a pretty shocking thing. And the way they have all the traffic lights here, totally different than the same colors, but the position, they have them both before the intersection and after the intersection, and I was very, very confused. And they have, anyway, it is confusing, at least for a while. Other than that, other things that were strange at the beginning were like the way people have fun here, and I suspect it's a historical thing related to weather. A lot of the life is spent or used to be inside. So the concept of pub, right? When I came here first year, I came somewhere at the end of the year, October, I think, and then in Romania, when you have the New Year celebration, it's a big thing, right? You get out in the streets, there are concerts, fireworks, and things like that. So we try to do the same here in Ireland. In the first year we came, we got the city center. There's nobody, absolutely nobody. We had a bottle of champagne with us because
we do the champagne thing as well.
And we decided that it's almost 12 o'clock, and we decided to open it, and there was a homeless guy who saw us, and he came to us to give him. He said, how can you, but I cannot give you the bottle because we're drinking from it. And he went, he looked around, he got a paper glass from, and we celebrated in 3. So that was pretty shocking initially, but
you get used to it.
You get used to it. It actually not necessarily get used to it, but the country changed just because of us. Of us meaning not me, foreigners that came. I mean,
you see a change in behavior now.
Yeah, so it's a lot more foreigners here, and they adapt to the local culture definitely. but they bring their culture with them, right? And what they bring is not bad. So even Irish people, I suspect they like it. So they brought this idea. For example, since then they introduce in the night between years they have like some big concert in city center. Again, might a little bit different than in our country. It's paid here, which makes much more sense from an economical perspective. But yeah, but still, it happens. It's noise. It's light. It's not silent, right? People started to get out much more. The weather changed in the meantime. When I came here, I remember it was raining much more than this. So we have to thank global warming that Ireland is getting much better. So yeah, from this perspective, that's the only cultural difference that I see. But the main impact, if you are coming from a Western type of country, nothing too much will shock you.
What about housing?
Yeah, when I came, that wasn't a problem. As I've told you, I came in the middle of the crash of the.
The meltdown.
Yeah, so it was like how would I call it? Now it is like the tenants market. No, the landlord market. Back then it was the tenants market, meaning that landlords were looking for tenants, so they were decreasing prices. So from this perspective, I was lucky. Now I know it's not. Now I think for somebody coming here, once they got here, that's the only, I mean, not the only, but the biggest problem that should care about. It's finding a home, which is tough. Ireland, just because, at least Dublin, just because it's a very old city, if you want to stay somewhere close to city center, the highest probability is that you will stay in a very old house, maybe built in the 19th century, or which doesn't have any insulation, doesn't have anything. You might, just because they don't have really bad winters here, they're not prepared for them. So if you have a few weeks of really, really bad cold, you can actually freeze inside your house, right? So beside that, it's also the rent. It's pretty big these days, sharing might be a solution, but that's a big problem that it looks like Ireland is working towards solving, just because I think that's the only problem that stops more and more companies to come here and bring people from all over the world here. Just because all these people that are coming, they don't have a place to sleep. It is tough, I think, right? But
if you were someone who has a family and is thinking about coming to Ireland, what would you recommend?
Don't bring your dog.
Okay, why the dog?
I think.
Is it tough?
No. I actually I have a friend at work, our workplace, right, that came also from Romania with a dog, and his experience is that again, coming back to the real estate market, it's the number of places that you can rent relatively close to work with a good price is limited anyway. If you bring a pet, you drastically reduce this. So, because there are a lot of landlords that they have objections, right?
Yes.
We don't want pets, and by default, that's one thing, right?
Okay.
So that might be one thing. Other than that, no. It's mainly a joke, because if you want to bring it, you definitely bring it, and you will find a solution. Maybe live a little bit farther from, which is actually much better in my opinion than living in city center Dublin. Living a little bit farther, it's much more in the middle of nature. And family, it's in a way better, at least in long term, just because you might have multiple incomes, and
If you were to meet George 15 years ago, what would you say to George?
about
Life.
life in general.
Yes, about this adventure that you got into living abroad.
About living abroad, I can say, so I feel not lucky, because lucky eventually you make it yourself, but I feel like the decision that I took by moving and staying here was a good one.
Okay.
So with the knowledge that I have now, I would say that, yeah, do it. Try to follow the same steps, but that doesn't say that it's the best decision.
Mm-hmm.
That
Still
could
happy
have
with
been.
the decision?
I'm still happy with the decisions.
What's the best thing that you get
From moving here?
Yeah. Or from living abroad, or what do you make the decision still valid?
So, for example, I don't have a particular reason for which I left Romania,
Okay.
right? I wasn't. In IT in Romania, you actually can have a good life. So our country, Romania, it's not necessarily the richest country in the world, but it's doing fine. And if you work in IT, you are actually the top of the middle class,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can do fine. When I came here, I was actually earning less than I was earning in Romania, right? But it was more, I'd say, adventure, spirit of adventure, try something new. That was the initial thing, and slowly you get used to the place, which I did, and it's overall, if we can use this word, it's a more civilized country than Romania. So now when I'm going back home, I see much more easier all the problems that are over there, right? Things that if you stay there, you might not notice, just because eventually you get used to it. You see other problems that I might not see from here, but now you see that from infrastructure, from roads, from, I don't know, all kind of shops that are around, all kind of services that are not around, and I think all these things here are better.
Mm-hmm.
Not all, a lot of them. So in balance, Ireland does better from this point of view. But it's not like a place to escape to from Romania, just because nothing bad is happening if you stay there. I know in some other cases people are leaving their country even because they cannot find a job or because of political or economical problems in that country. At least in Romania back then, that wasn't the issue. Maybe it is now. Things unfortunately got worse. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a particularly good reason for myself coming here. It's just trying something new. And yeah.
What final advice could you provide to the people who might be thinking, maybe they are in their countries and they feel like they got kind of stuck, or they want to try something new? People might be reaching them because recruiters, we know they're here, kind of get to send mails to many people, and they get the mail there, and then like, what could be, and then they might be listening to this podcast to try to find out about the country.
Yeah, definitely. So what I would say is that it definitely depends from person to person, but a change is always good, even if you don't necessarily need it. From my perspective, a change is good. Of course, depends where are you in life. If you are settled in your place, a change is a little bit more difficult to make, even if you want. But a change is good just because you don't know how it is. You know how your life is currently, but you don't know how it might be. And if you don't try it, you might not know if you took a good decision or not. You can always come back home or change the place if you don't like it. But just because, you have just one life, it's worth trying. And in particular, Ireland, we talk about Ireland because we live in Ireland. There are, I think, some advantages, and I think in particular Ireland, advantages for foreigners. This country is a country of people that lived abroad. So a lot of people from Ireland left the country. They are still in different countries. It is said that whatever Irish person you talk with, they were or they have a relative that is abroad.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, there are some reasons for this to happen, but that's not the purpose of this discussion. Because of that, at least at the first glance, there is much more acceptance toward foreigners in this country. I can say that since I came here, I never felt that I'm not here in this country and I'm not accepted. At least nobody ever told me so.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they felt it, but it's not. They don't expose it, so you would feel bad. So from this perspective, I think Ireland is one of the best countries in the world, better than even maybe United States. They are very accepting to foreigners, and since we are so many,
Yes.
we are also helping each other.
Yeah.
So it's a good country to
Yes.
come in and at least try. If it is the first experience of this kind, Ireland, I think, it's one of the best countries in the world, just because of the mixture of people in this country. So yeah, come on and try it out.
Enjoy. Good. Well, thank you so much, George.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
And see ya.
Okay, see you.